And you can have a meaning in your life that is very limited. Like for many people, the meaning, okay, I want to have a career that gives you limited meaning in your personal life. I'm working for a career, nothing wrong with that. I'm working to create a better life for myself and my family. That's also wonderful, great. I'm working to achieve recognition in this world, etc., etc. That's fine too. But at some point, a, a meaning that is purely personal may begin to lose its power. So that, let's say you've spent 2 or 3 decades working for your career, which is nothing wrong with it. At some point, you may arrive at a point where your career doesn't mean anything anymore, or you lose it. That you lose your career and your status, or it consumes you so completely that you become ill with stress, or in some other way turns into something that's not satisfying at all. It actually creates suffering. So something can give you limited meaning for a while, for years, and then suddenly turn out to be ultimately meaningless. So, and some people suddenly wake up and say, "Oh, my life." Some people fall ill, seriously ill, and then they look back on their life and see, this was so pointless, accumulating possessions. Why did I do that? What was the point in that? All the things that I was so anxious about when let's say they're seriously ill now. All the things that I was so anxious about that were created, what was it that was so unnecessary and pointless? All the things that I've been striving for are ultimately pointless. That can be an opening. Suddenly, wow, the limited personal meaning, which was fine, is better than no meaning at all. To have a personal meaning in your life, better than no meaning at all. But ultimately, that's not satisfying in the long term. You have work that bring more consciousness into this dimension. That's wonderful. So you can have, it is not necessarily a case of either having a career or being aligned with universal purpose, which is you can bring the two together. That's the balance between being and doing, as I sometimes call it. The balance between being and doing, bringing those two together. But so the purpose, there's only one true purpose in your life, and that you have to discover that, and that is, am I aligned with the consciousness, and am I a bringer of consciousness? So that's the end of nihilism, is that, and it no longer matters. Your entire past becomes relatively unimportant when you realize the meaning of life is to be a bringer of consciousness. Let's say your entire past was one disaster after another. It happens. Some people's life is like, unfortunately, was like that. Let's say you ended up in prison because you did one wrong and bad thing after another. But then you look back on your so-called life and say, my God, that was a disaster. My entire life was just a disaster. Okay. But at this moment, I realize the consciousness that I am. And all the suffering that I have created for myself and others, all the suffering I have created for myself and others was part of the egoic dream, the delusion, the egoic delusion and the conditioning that I came into this world with. And then you awaken at this moment. If a totally disastrous life brings you to a point of awakening now, the whole thing was great because it suddenly has a purpose. Retrospectively, all the disasters brought you to this moment of awakening. So in retrospect, what was totally absurd and meaningless, suddenly it fulfilled a purpose. The past can suddenly be realized as having fulfilled its purpose by creating the suffering that led to your awakening. So there's no regret anymore about the past. It all made sense. So the meaning arises retrospectively. It only remains absurd and disastrous if the awakening doesn't happen. Then you're trapped in the dreadful dream. Continue to be trapped in it. Wow. So be aligned with universal purpose. That is the ultimate birth. No matter what you do, no matter how it expresses itself through you, that doesn't matter. But realize that and if you want to look at your life in terms of failure and success, as many people do, is my life a failure? Is my life a success? What criterion do you use for failure or success? Do you allow this world to tell you whether you're a failure or success? To a large extent, this world is insane. So are you allowing an insane world to tell you whether your life is a failure or success? Well, no, if this world cannot tell you, then what is it? Obviously, the only true criterion is whether you are conscious or not in this moment. If you're conscious in this moment, instead of being totally immersed in the dream of your conditioned unawareness, the fictitious person, if you're conscious in this moment, then that is the greatest and only true success there could be in this life.